Mumen Rider, the C-Class Rank 1 hero and overall solid dude. In this video, we're going to be talking about him, like pretty much everything about him, and this video was made possible by my awesome patron, Evan L. Thank you so much for your patronage and request, Evan. I hope this video is good enough for what you wanted. So at its core, Mumen Rider is a parody of Kamen Rider, which is like a contemporary of the Power Rangers, except their gimmick is that they use these sweet-looking motorcycles. So the funny comparison here is that Mumen Rider has like a similar aesthetic to Kamen Rider and a similar demeanor as well, except instead of using like these sweet-looking motorcycles that they have, he just shows up on like a regular bike with like a basket in the front. And he's like earnestly riding this thing because it doesn't matter to him what his mode of transportation is. He just needs something to get him from point A to point B quickly so he can go about conducting his justice, because he originally did have a motorcycle. But this brings us to his name, which means licenseless rider. So he lost the license and the privilege of riding the said motorcycle because he accrued so many speeding tickets from recklessly rushing and speeding to get to the crime scenes. So apparently the name of his bike is the Bicycle of Justice, or just Justice for short. And this thing is integral to Mumen Rider, not just from a transportation aspect, but a fighting one as well, because it is the key component in his ultimate move, which is the Justice Crash. And this is where Mumen Rider speeds up temporarily on his bike and then launches it at his opponent like a projectile. I mean, it's also implied that he'll just straight up crash into you while still riding the bike. And while this thing isn't really effective against powerful monsters, we can assume it's probably somewhat effective against like a wolf. It'll definitely probably wreck like a normal person. So aside from the crash, Mumen Rider also has some other trademark moves, such as the Justice Tackle, which we can assume is similar to the Tank Top Tackle. He also has the Justice Punch, the Justice Kick, and one of his special moves, the Justice Crane Kick. And this is all displayed in the third audiobook, Sonic Becoming Saitama, when Mumen Rider takes on the Angry Grandpa Monster, which is probably his best performance against a monster, but we'll get into that later. He also has a special move when he's riding his bike, or it's called the Riding Out of the Saddle mode, which is just him standing up, which I guess allows him to go faster. I mean, apparently he can go 2.5 times faster when he is in this mode, but, you know, it also drains a lot of his stamina. So now let's talk about some miscellaneous stuff about Mumen Rider. So he lives in Z City, which is the same city that Saitama lives in. And speaking of him, Mumen Rider coincidentally went to the same school that Saitama did. It's stated that Mumen Rider was in Class 2, so we can assume that Saitama was in Class 1. But they also don't appear to be aware of this because they don't talk about it when they do meet each other. But it's just a fun little fact out there. And it also shows us that Mumen Rider was all about righteous justice even as a kid. Because in that chapter, the 200 yen bonus chapter, where we find out that they went to the same school, he is shown defending like these weakling kids from some bullies trying to scam money off of them. It's also shown time and time again that Mumen Rider will pretty much do anything if it means he can help someone. Like, he's not just the kind of hero that will fight monsters, but he'll just do random acts of kindness. Like, in one instance, we see him climbing up a tree to get a balloon that was stuck in it for some random kid. Another instance, we see that he's just randomly a crossing guard at a point. Even on Christmas, he doesn't take off. Like, he's patrolling even on that day to keep kids safe. And according to the data book, he likes do-it-yourself shops, bicycles, motorcycles, and watching tokusatsu, which is basically the genre of the Kamen Rider and the Power Ranger stuff that we were talking about earlier. He also likes reading bike magazines, and he specifically dislikes bicycle thieves. So now let's talk about Mumen Rider's combat record, which is pretty comical considering the disparity of power between him and his opponents. So we first see Mumen Rider in his fight against Hammerhead and the Paradisers. And this is like right after the Paradisers bust a building. So Mumen Rider is definitely aware of how powerful these guys are. And yeah, he gets destroyed by them, but it's kind of off panel. We only see the end result of it, but I'm sure it didn't take more than one strike to finish him, since these guys bust buildings and can flip over cars no problem. So props to Mumen Rider for surviving this, but this is going to be like just the beginning of outrageous things that he's been able to survive. So his most famous fight, of course, is against Deep Sea King, where he doesn't really do much, of course, but it's more of the symbolism that his performance represents rather than the results that he gets from fighting. So at this point in the story, Mumen Rider is the last line of defense, keeping Deep Sea King from killing all of the civilians, because all of the other heroes that have stepped up to him at this point have been defeated, including Genos. And Mumen Rider is completely aware of this. Like, he's not delusional in his acts here. He is totally aware of where he stands on the power scale, especially compared to Deep Sea King. But that doesn't matter. He knows that he needs to get in there and do something, just anything, to keep the attention away from Deep Sea King taking the civilians and buying just a little bit more time for another hero to show up. Doesn't even matter if it's a second, Mumen Rider will gladly put his life on the line just to do anything against this guy. And this is showing that Mumen Rider has like an insane level of selflessness and altruism that few other characters and just people in general have. And I personally think this is a big reason why Saitama respects and likes Mumen Rider so much, because he knows he is absolutely genuine. Mumen Rider also takes on Garou, and in this fight we see like one of his most insane feats of altruism. It's like borderline psychotic what he does here, because as Garou is being beat down by Tank Top Master, he jumps in front of him to defend Garou from a strike from Tank Top Master. Like, he takes this to the face. A C-class hero taking a strike from an S-class hero. And Mumen Rider is aware that Garou is a dirtbag at this point. He knows that he's the hero hunter. He knows of all of the crap that he's committed. But still, Mumen Rider pities him. He sees him as just like a punk. And that he thinks that Tank Top Master is bullying him because he's so much more powerful than him. Mumen Rider is also ready to let Garou off the hook. Like, he's like, just don't be a bad guy anymore. Okay, bye. Like, he's gonna let Garou walk away. Mumen Rider also took on Vaccine Man. I know. Like, apparently before Saitama was able to show up and take care of him, the Hero Association was like panicking and scrambling to round up some heroes to take him on. They were able to get like a handful of guys, and one of them was Mumen Rider. But, nothing happened. Like, he wasn't able to do anything against Vaccine Man, of course. It's implied that Vaccine Man wasn't even aware of, like, this little strike team's existence. But it's still showing you that Mumen Rider will literally fight anyone. I mean, we already saw that when he took on Deep Sea King, when all of the cards and all of the weight was on his shoulders. Like, he straight up tried to suplex Deep Sea King, knowing that nothing was going to come of it, but he just tried anyway. And this is just further showing you that, yeah, he'll even go against Vaccine Man, like one of the strongest monsters we have ever seen in the series, confirmed City Buster at this point when he knows that he has to take him on, but still he's like, oh, Vaccine Man, alright, cool, when? Where do you need me? I'll go do it. So Mumen Rider's best performance is probably against the Angry Grandpa monster, and this is what we were talking about earlier in the audiobook Sonic Becoming Saitama. And in this fight, we see Mumen Rider showing that he has those trademark moves, like the Justice Tackle, the Punch, the Kick. It's even implied that he somewhat hurts the Grandpa monster with his Justice Crane Kick. And this guy isn't necessarily like a super chump. I mean, his punches can put holes in the ground, and he is somewhat of a threat. I mean, it's implied that he's taking bullets too. And Mumen Rider's kind of successful against this guy. He does save people from him. But in the end, he doesn't get the job done, because after he does his Justice Crash, Sonic intervenes and throws an exploding shuriken at him. So in the end, he's not necessarily getting the win, but it's not necessarily a loss either. And this brings us to Mumen Rider's most recent fight, and I think also his last appearance in the manga, as far as I know. And this is when he takes on the monster Joffrey in the Hero Association Hospital. So, of course, he's not really able to do much against this monster either, but it's just further showing us that nothing will stop Mumen Rider from saving and protecting people, because he is obviously in the hospital because of his beating from Garou, but he's also trying to protect the ICU patients who aren't able to evacuate the hospital at this time. And even though he's still not able to do anything, Tank Top Master shows up and saves him along with everybody else. But it's just the effort that Mumen Rider is showing here that counts the most. So that's pretty much Mumen Rider. And he's an interesting character because he's not powerful, very far from that as we have seen, and he's not really integral to the story whatsoever. He's kind of just there. But that doesn't mean that he's insignificant, because his significance comes from what he represents, and that is the unequivocal hero. I mean, he's pretty much heroism personified, since the definition is great bravery. And there's really no one else in the series that exemplifies this better than Mumen Rider. He seems to be born with a death of ego, as well as literally no ulterior motives to his genuine altruistic actions, almost to like a superhuman degree, because I don't think there's any people, in our world at least, that are as genuine as Mumen Rider appears to be, which in a way makes him a legitimate superhero. So that's pretty much it for the video today, guys. Let me know what you think about Mumen Rider in the comments. Where do you think his story is headed, if it is even headed anywhere? And if you liked the video, please give it a like. I also have a Patreon. It gives you access to a Discord and a Q&A. And if you haven't already, please subscribe as well. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.